simultaneously run the world's most powerful online retailer, the Washington Post newspaper, and his own pet project space program. You'd be dead wrong. Because Jeff Bezos and his Amazon group also oversees a quite extraordinary proportion of everyday traffic on the World Wide Web. Think household names like Netflix, Zoom, Disney and the BBC, all of which depend heavily on technical infrastructure directly created and controlled by the world's richest man himself. And most of us are wholly unaware of how and why that is. So today we're going to examine how and to what extent Jeff Bezos secretly controls the internet. It all started in 2002. So-called Amazon Web Services, or AWS, was first created as a department within Amazon, charged by Jeff Bezos with building the leanest, meanest internal tech infrastructure the world had ever seen. Nothing less would do in order to help Bezos realize his stratospheric ambitions for the company, then best known as a nerdy online book retailer. The following year, 2003, AWS engineers Chris Pinkham and Benjamin Black proposed that their sick new service-as-a-service brainchild could not only make their company agile and omnipotent as it is today, it could also be sold on as a service to third-party companies, in turn creating modest extra revenue for Amazon. Fast forward to today, and that nifty little side hustle earned Amazon $11.6 billion in the third quarter of 2020 alone, close to 3/4 of the group's overall profits. So what does Amazon Web Services actually do? Imagine you're an online startup. Back in the day, having sussed out your killer app idea and found backing, you'd need to invest in servers. If you were ambitious, you'd be in the market for a whole load of servers. That kind of hardware still doesn't come cheap, and neither does the labor and myriad other costs required to maintain and expand it. So what AWS does is rent out, at phenomenally cheap rates, access to and capacity on Amazon's colossal international network of servers. Essentially, Amazon the company figured out the best possible infrastructure to galvanize and nourish its own mammoth operation, and then decided to rent that out for others to use as well. It's been said, somewhat fancifully, that when you upload to the cloud, your data isn't in the cloud at all, it's just on somebody else's computer. Well, to the extent that's true, more often than not, the person whose computer your stuff is on is Jeff Bezos. According to some estimates, Amazon controls little over half of the cloud computing sector. Although to the end user, that's you and me, any migration to the AWS cloud by our favorite online services is seamless, in that you wouldn't even know. But every time you catch a movie on Netflix or hail an Uber, rewind the news on BBC, book an Airbnb or Zoom call your best mate, that data is probably running through Amazon-controlled servers. So why do big companies who can presumably afford their own server infrastructure use AWS? Scalability is a huge factor. If Netflix is launching a new show and anticipates high levels of viewership, it can temporarily upgrade its server capacity on AWS essentially at the push of a button. Then later, when traffic settles down, it can reduce its take-up of AWS services in a way that simply wouldn't be feasible if they were paying for their own hardware. Indeed, Netflix, a rival to Amazon's Prime Video streaming service, remember, has publicly stated that its operating costs have reduced substantially as a consequence of migrating onto the AWS cloud. Amazon's power isn't simply limited to helping you binge-watch Ozark, though. In